Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. My guest today is Lilian Tintori. She is the wife of Leopoldo Lopez, who is an opposition leader in Venezuela, who is currently serving a 14-year jail sentence for allegedly inciting anti-government protests. He has been behind bars since February 2014. Thank you very much for joining us from Caracas, Mrs. Tintori. We've seen months of violence in Venezuela. We've seen protests between the opposition against the regime of the President Nicolas Maduro. They have been intensifying. The president of Peru, Pedro Kuczynski, recently said, if nothing is done, this will end in a bloodbath. Some are fearing civil war in Venezuela. Do you share this fear?
Hello, Mark. Thank you very much. Here in Venezuela, we are in protest. No violent protest, pacific protest. The violence comes from the regime because the regime have the arms. The army shot people in the street. So the first thing I need to say to you that we believe in protest, peaceful protest, no violence. We don't want violence. We don't want more murders in Venezuela. We are in a dictatorship. We live in a dictatorship with a dictator that is Maduro, that today trying to silence the 90% of Venezuelan people that want a change. PPK, the president of Peru, we don't want that. We don't want to have a disaster in Venezuela. That's why Leopoldo Lopez was a visionary, because he anticipated that the government failed model would allow this disaster to unfold. That's why he handed himself to raise awareness and try to prevent the disaster. This happened in 2014. Leopoldo Lopez is my husband. Right now he's in the jail. Right now he's in a military cell for 3 years and 3 months. I am the wife of political prisoners Leopoldo Lopez, one of over 300 political prisoners. Leopoldo was condemned in a trial that was a scam with fake allegation. Because he's a political prisoner. And we want a change, but a pacific change, a democratic change, and a constitutional change.
I want to ask you about this. Nicolas Maduro wants to elect a so-called constituent assembly where he could change the constitutions. The elections for such an assembly are scheduled for July the 13th. Why are you opposed to this? Why would you not accept this assembly?
Okay, first of all, we live in a dictatorship. They trying to use the power to stay in the power, and he used all the powers in our country to control everything. That's why this year Maduro tried to eliminate the assembly, one of the power that we vote. 14 million Venezuelan people vote for a parliament. Nicolás Maduro eliminate the parliament. It's a coup. Es un golpe de Estado. It's a coup. This happened this year in January. Then Nicolás Maduro said that he wants to do a constitutional. First, we don't want and we don't need a new constitution. We need to respect the ones that we have. But the problem of this project of Maduro is that he don't want to consult people to do this constitution. And the first thing you need to do as a president, as a government, to have a constitution is the first part is to consult everybody and ask, do you want, Venezuelan people, do you want a constitution? And Venezuelan people say yes or say no. Well, Nicolás Maduro said, no, we're going to do directly. That's not constitution, it's illegal. And a lot of people inside Maduro government A lot of people, Chavista, say no.
I want to get to those divisions within the regime. I think this is probably the most interesting developments. Obviously, there are nearly daily protests. We're seeing people die or go to jails. But within the regime, there seems to be some cracks. First and foremost, the chief prosecutor, Luisa Ortega, who's challenged Maduro's handling of the protests and his willingness to rewrite the constitution. But do you think that she is the only one? Or are you hearing that others close to Maduro, maybe inside the military, are also having serious doubts about Maduro himself and may leave him?
Mark, what I'm saying to you is that the constitution of Maduro is today the illegal and alarm inside Maduro group and inside the Chavismo. That's why of these 5 powers of our government, one power is that La Fiscalía, the prosecutor, said no and separate of the dictatorship. That's why a general of the army renounced 2 days ago and said, no, I am not allowed that constitution that it's failed. It's a constitution illegal. Many people of the Chavismo and the Maduro say today no to Maduro, and there's inside the government separate people, separate because it's crazy. Do a constitution without people. It's crazy. If that happens, our country is gonna be a disaster more than we have today. If that happens, we're never gonna vote again. A free vote, election free. We don't have. We're gonna eliminate the popular vote in Venezuela. That we can do that. We need to block that. We need country like France. We need country around the world to say no. That's illegal. That's in constitution, and Maduro can do that constitution like that.
Okay, I want to ask about the recent video from your husband that was put out from his jail, and he called on the military personnel on the streets. He said, I want to send a very clear message framed by our constitution. You have a right and duty to rebel. Is he, in effect, calling for a military coup in Venezuela to change the regime of Maduro using their weapons? What is exactly behind your husband's latest message?
No. It's not a coup. Leopoldo don't believe in coup. Leopoldo live in a military cell, in a military jail, and he understands inside the military, inside the army, what happened. I think what happened is the military and the army had family too. And everyone in Venezuela has scarcity of food and medicine. And we are in a humanitarian crisis. People die for preventable disease. On top of that, we have one of the highest rates of violence in the world. And now the regime repressed us in the street. Leopoldo knows what happened inside the army and inside the military. And what happened is that 90% of Venezuelan people want a change and don't want Maduro. And the army is the same, have the same sentiment, the same feeling. The feeling is, we don't want that, we want a change. And in a military jail, more than half are political prisoners, are militaries that are in jail because that armies think differently of Maduro. That's the message of Leopoldo. We don't believe in coup, Mark.
Okay.
We believe in a change, a peaceful, democratic, and constitutional change.
Do you think that Nicolas Maduro could accept to leave power, or do you think that he will not accept this and resist to the very end, saying, I'm the president?
Of course, the dictatorship don't want to leave, Mark. But right now, Maduro are in a big problem. 90% of the people want change. 90% is our country, and the army is part of the people that suffer, that don't have medicine, don't have food, and don't have security. So people are in the street every day, more than 2 months in the street, protest, peaceful protest, to have a change in Venezuela. So Nicolas Maduro needs to hear people, need to hear the people, and need to hear the international community.
But just my last question was about the international community very quickly, because we don't have much time left. Do you expect more from the international community, maybe from the Trump administration, maybe from Europe? Are you disappointed that they're not saying more about this situation you're describing?
Of course, Mark. I believe in the international community. I travel around the world for these last 3 years talking about Venezuela and trying to say, help us, help Venezuela. This Sunday, we have the General Assembly of the OES. And
the Organization of the American States, yes.
Opportunity for have the support of the international community. And that's why I think this interview is very important. I asked to France, to the President Macron, to the new government, please help us. Your government in France know us. I travel around the world and stayed in France many times talking about our problems. We need help. This is a moral fight. This is a moral and democratic and a family fight. Help us.
Thank you, Ms. Tintori. That's all we have time for. Thank you for joining us from Caracas, Venezuela. And thank you for watching this edition of The Interview here on France 24.